I mean, when I'm watching this, I am 100% sitting over here watching a movie of two people in the same place or three people in the same place. Full blown, like no social distancing crowd behind her. But I mean, that's irrelevant. It's just, it doesn't matter. Although it would be fun. I like it. I actually like the way that it feeds into the visual of this, where they're outside and behind you is also, it all feels outside. You've got the cafe to the right of you, but where she's coming in, the way that both of you look is that there's the bar, the outdoor bar. I mean, it just looks so beautiful. And also, you know, this is the ultimate example of absolutely committing to dialogue, regardless of how unbelievable it is, because this is the ultimate colorblind scene. I mean, the truth is, you kind of can't say some of those things, you know, about your ethnicity, Austin, and then the connection between the, you know, like it just doesn't, but we just surrender to it because you're not fighting it at all. And all that boils down to is, from an acting point of view, from a studying point of view, from a skill point of view, that you guys are able to and allowing yourselves to literally surrender to whatever it is that's the truth of the scene. It might not be the way Shanley would have cast it, or cast it in his mind when he wrote it. And nowadays, almost everything, they're opening it up, obviously, to all ethnicities, but some things are specifically applicable. But is the nature of this whole scene, is it necessary that this is three white people that possibly could be from Europe? Absolutely not. It's a relationship scene, and that's how I assign things. I assign things based on, like, what can you do with this scene that will help you understand a certain dynamic? So, for example, right from the beginning, Olivia, when he says he wants to leave, you know, and you at some point, look, what was so wonderful about what you did is that you experienced even more personal freedom to engage in exploring her behavioral freedom in this, from the laughter, from poking around. I mean, you weren't indicating or faking anything. You were looking around and you were like, have you been here before? You wanted to make sure he never met her before. I literally could read your mind. Like, I hope he's never met her or seen her before. This is a surprise I'm going to spring on him. And then you're like, and then it was like, when he said he wants to leave, you're like, you better not leave because she hasn't come here yet. And you haven't you haven't put her on his menu yet. You know, I just felt all of that. And actually later, when you were talking about, oh, she's got energy, I was like, oh, did you already sleep with her? I mean, it was like so many things ran through my mind, because when you guys, and you know, sometimes people in the past have said things like, very long time ago, like, how many scenes do I do in a 6-week cycle? Because my classes were 6 weeks. I'm like, if you're lucky, you'll finish one. And there's nothing, it's not like, you know, what's the point of the quantity? It's the quality. What can you pull out of a scene? Now, Olivia, you know, you've had to get to like heightened levels of ridiculous emotion in record time on the job for years. It's like a pleasure for you to be able to spend weeks building towards something. You could do it faster if you needed to, but you can also just now pull these characters out of your ass in an entirely different situation. So you get a script that even resembles this slightly, you'll remember, oh, she just pulled it out of her ass. You'll remember to go, I could be laughing in here. I could be giggling in here. I could really feel like the weight of the mystery that I'm inflicting on him in here. So many things, when you guys work on things over time, a lot more things bubble up to the surface, and they bubble up a lot faster. Like, you had so much more fun today. Would you not agree, Olivia? Things I just want to call to your attention, like when you look, like you say something about looking at her shoulders. Like, is that the way the line ends up finishing, or you finished the line and said that you were looking at her shoulders?
It says I was looking at her shoulder. Was it?
Okay, my only question to you is why. You know, you start to answer what you were looking at, and it's not your ass, it's something else, or it's not anything. But no way you were going to go with that, because you kind of cut yourself off, and I was like, were you going to say anything? Or were you like, I was looking at her shoulders just because they were in front of me as she was. It could be anything you want, but be really specific about it. Also, you know, that part where you screamed, you yelled really loud. Mm-hmm. I would like for you to have that same level of intensity, but with way less volume. Okay. Because you are in a public place, no one is there, you don't want to call any attention to yourself, or do it with all that volume because you're like, nobody's fucking here. Make a choice that goes beyond just your temper. That he chooses to understand his environment, because that would influence me. If I was in an empty place, I might be less apt to do it, or I might be more apt to do it to make today. When you watch this, you're going to be like, whoa, this is so interesting how this tiny little thing. And again, I use an example, and you guys wouldn't see it in the editing process. I almost wish like some of you were with me through my editing process. Turn to him. It's so tricky and intricate in editing that the littlest thing can make you feel like you're there, or it can be really jarring. And mostly with you, it was about you being able to, because you can't, I don't know where they showed up on your computer, and you can't pin either one of them, so you probably had to watch the whole thing in gallery, or you were watching it on speaker, and it goes back and forth between them. When you watch this and you're in it, for us, it feels like they're bookending you. You're like this centerpiece in the middle, and they're looking at you, or they're looking at each other. And when they look at you and you show up in the middle, you're perfectly framed. It's just that you know who you're talking to. And for you to flip it, I don't know whether he ends up on the wrong side of the frame for you. So when you are looking at him, basically you're going to be looking at the last person who talked. And then you have to trick yourself into going, which side of the frame are they on? Now you know. Austin is on your right? And Olivia is on your left. And it may not make any sense while it's happening. And that's why this is also very helpful for you guys, because in the long run, when you're shooting, you don't have time to discuss with the DP and the director why they want you to look some way or one way or the other, or not look right at your target. And you just got to be able to do it. And you got to be able to surrender to it. I do think you could have even more of a difference between the two of them. Like when you're looking at him, you could, I don't know. I mean, what occurred to me is like, I feel like you could have almost laughed in his face between whatever you say to him and then you ask him what he does for a living. Because I feel like you need more motivation to ask him what he does for a living. Because you look at him, he says something, and then you go, what do you do for a living? I'm like, I don't understand the segue. It's in the writing, but I don't understand it. So it might be like, you might be thinking to yourself, what a jackass, uptight jackass. What do you do for a living? You could either laugh in his face or laugh with her. I want you to really define them as two very different people. And almost treat Olivia like you've slept with her. And let her know through eye contact, like you're actually not that interested in him. Or that you could be, or he's got to change. I mean, I feel like you could have a whole lot of, even though you might not be on the screen because it's in your silent moments, I think you could have more eyeballing communication. They're not going to see it because all they can see is each other or you when you're talking. Or they can't see you ever because they're always looking away from the frame. So they get to only enjoy it afterwards. And that's actually what the ultimate experience is when you're shooting anyway, because you're not in Video Village and you don't know what they're shooting. This is all very, very important for you guys to understand the beauty of the technology behind the mastery and the artistry of editing and filming.